presentation of these three books, the consensus among the political heavyweights present here is that sustainable long-term plans in Nigeria are essential tools for national development. The three development books written by former Special Advisor on Performance, Monitoring and Evaluation, Professor Sylvester Monye, who carried out the concession of Asaba International Airport, canvassed sustainable policy ideas to drive economic growth. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo during the launch dedicated the book in honor and development of the country. Former President Goodluck Jonathan, who Professor Monye worked under, is advocating a return to long-term and sustainable national development planning of 20 years or even 50 years for better achievement of national objectives.
We should be able to link up our campaign promises to the national development plans of the country. And of course, the ministers are to execute these plans. So we need to know their scorecards so that we'll be able to serve our country the way we're expected to serve.
Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, says planning is very important for a country like Nigeria to accelerate national developments.
These three books that were actually presented today by Olusegun Obasanjo was clearly meant to create awareness in terms of planning and development in any country or any establishment for that matter. I doff my hat for him, and I know that if you don't plan, you fail. But if you plan well and then you follow up with the implementation of the plan, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, the tendency is that at the end of the day, there will be some benefit of those planning that you can actually leave behind as legacy to the people.
The governor of Delta State, Sheriff Oborevori, who was represented by the Commissioner of Finance in the state, says the concession of the Asaba Airport, which was driven by Professor Sylvester Monye, is one of the outstanding achievements of the Ifeanyi Okowa administration in Delta State.
Having read the book, and the author confirmed that a lot of pressures came from different angles, but he never interfered. So there was focus, there was commitment, there was integrity, and we followed it to the end, and today we have delivered the only concession airport in Nigeria.
I told Kemochebe that we needed an airport in Asaba. I had discussed with the body, then governor. But an airport in Asaba was not his priority at that time, because there was another airport in Usubi, in Warri. But I kept pushing until President Obasanjo approved the airport the year that he did.
What is even more interesting was that I can't understand up to today how Governor Okowa will ask us to do an assignment with a caveat, do the right thing. And he didn't want to know who the bidders were.
There was a politics of location that are really not being resolved. But in his own ability to rise above that, Governor Uduaghan did not change the plans already laid by Governor Ibori. He continued with it, cited the airport, even though that earned the wrath of some of his own people in the Shekiri part of the state.
Well, history becomes so interesting, especially when you were in the picture. Joining us in the studio is Professor Sylvester Monye, who is a former special advisor to former President Goodluck Jonathan on performance monitoring and evaluation. He's also the author of those 3 books.
That's right.
Good to see you, Professor Monye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for gifting the world these wonderful compendium of national development plans from 1999 to 2020.
Thank you.
So let's start off by talking about why you decided to put all of these into a book.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to talk about planning. Planning is something that I'm very passionate about. It is difficult to comprehend the fact that we are very rich in planning history, yet we struggle as a people, you know. The first indigenous plan was produced in 1962. and we had National Development Plan 1, 2, 3, 4, up to, I think it was after the fourth one that we had challenges in the execution of our National Development Plan in 1985. That was when the then President Babangida tried, under very difficult circumstances, to push for planning. But he was advised by IMF and other multilateral institutions to adopt a more flexible approach to planning, and that was what led to rolling plan. You know, at some point we had national rolling plans. The idea is that if you plan and you don't complete the execution, you roll it over. Instead of terminating it, you roll it over. But the problem with that is that it's a rolling stone, as it were, and you couldn't really tell when you will complete it. And that was what made our private sector people, led by the then head of state, Shoneko, Chief Ernest Shoneko, to lead the NESG group, and the
Economic Summit.
Economic Summit group. They decided they were going to help the government produce a plan, a long-term plan. You can't do much as an enterprise without having a hang of the trajectory of the economic direction of the country. Right. And they did produce Vision 2010. Sadly, Abacha died before it was even implemented. And of course, it wasn't really the problem of the successor to Abacha, General Abdulsalami Abubakar. He was more interested in handing over than executing a plan. And then it's continued. So since then, every administration has produced their own plan. The problem with everybody producing their own plan is that you lack consistency, you lack longevity, you can't plan. And unfortunately, because our plans lack legitimacy to the extent that you don't have a law backing it up, so anybody comes and they'll put it aside and produce their own plan.
Prof, we'll need a lot of time to talk more on these books. Now let's go to the concession of Asaba International Airport, balancing politics and policy execution. That definitely is a challenge.
Yes.
In this part. You know, how do you separate the politics from the right thing to do in terms of policy direction, regardless of where you will cite maybe a project like the Asaba Airport and all of that? Tell us more about the politics and how it may have gotten in the way.
Well, the Asaba Airport concession was a bigger challenge than we envisaged. The Delta State is not like any other state in Nigeria. Delta State is unique. Delta State is a mini Nigeria. It is one of the most complex states. It's made up of 5 distinct ethnic nationalities. So you are talking about a state made up of people who have nothing in common culturally. So when you bring them together and say this is a state, you expect naturally that there will be issues about what is right and what is wrong from whose perspective. Now when the airport was built, it was a good idea, but not running the way it was envisaged. Between 2011 and 2015, the state spent about 1.54 billion just keeping it afloat. During that period, the revenue generated was about 150 million. So you used 1.5 billion to generate 150 million. You can see the economics is not a sustainable one. And that was when Governor Kowa looked at it and said, listen, I'm not going to get involved in the politics of whether we do it or we don't do it. Let's do the right thing. So for you to succeed balancing politics and policy execution, you have to have a clear intention to do what is right. You don't allow the social media to determine the trajectory of that policy. And that's what he did. He gave us the mandate, he gave us the charge, and to be honest with you, in concessioning the Asaba Airport, we didn't have any reference point. There was no precedence. So we thought that we could do it in 6 months, 1 year, but we ended up doing it in 6 years. However, the beautiful thing about it is that when you do it correctly, you do it without any care about what people may think politically. The result is that today we have the best run airport in Nigeria. We have the only self-sustaining airport in Nigeria. Today, we have the only profitable airport in Nigeria. Wow. We have the only airport that you can fly into anytime and pick aviation fuel, because the airport managers now have what they call service level agreement with service providers.
So doing the right thing is a template that should be applied in every
it is a template. It's taken us 6 years, but it's something that we felt you couldn't do. Couldn't light a candle and put it under the table. That's why we
I think it's something that we'll come talk about again, because we are really out of time. But we want to say thanks for coming out of your busy lunch day today to still have time with us. And those are copies?
These are for
yes, I came with this to present this to the library of Arise News.
Great, thank you so much. I received this with all pleasure. With all pleasure. Thank you very much. This is from Professor Sylvester Monye. 3 books in 1.
Thank you.